I'm Ethan, 39, and I thought I had it all figured out. Married to Lauren for 12 years, living in a nice house in the suburbs. I worked hard, and we had the kind of life that should have been solid. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But about 6 months ago, things started to change. I noticed small things first. Lauren was always on her phone, more secretive. She used to tell me everything, but now it was just surface-level stuff. Then came the girls' nights. At first, it was once in a while, then it was 2, sometimes 3 nights a week. She'd leave the house looking all dressed up, way more than usual, with barely a glance in my direction. Every time I'd ask where she was going, I'd get the same answer, out with the girls, followed by that same dismissive tone she'd started using. She made me feel like I was crazy for even asking. Still, I didn't push it too hard. I figured maybe it was a phase or something, but deep down, something didn't sit right. I'd lie in bed at night, waiting for her to come home, feeling that gut-wrenching suspicion gnawing at me. But I didn't want to be that guy, the paranoid husband who couldn't trust his wife. Then one night, I found her tablet lying on the kitchen counter. I hadn't planned to snoop, but it was just sitting there. I hesitated for a second. Part of me felt guilty, but the other part? The part that had been stewing in doubt for weeks? That part took over. I unlocked it and started scrolling. It didn't take long before I found the messages. The guy's name was Ryan, some nobody I didn't recognize at first. The messages between them made me sick to my stomach. They weren't just talking, they were planning their next rendezvous. There it was in black and white. Last night was incredible. Can't wait to see you again. And just like that, the life I thought I had, the marriage I thought was real, came crashing down around me. Ryan wasn't some random guy either. I realized it after a few minutes of thinking. He was married too. Married to Anna, one of Lauren's friends. We'd even had dinner with him once. I sat there, staring at those messages, wondering how long it had been going on, how many times she'd lied right to my face, all while pretending everything was normal. When Lauren got home that night, late again, I was ready for her. I smiled, like an idiot, and asked her how her night was. She gave me the same answer. Oh, just out with the girls, without even blinking. I don't know what hurt more, the affair or the fact that she could lie so easily. It was like she'd been rehearsing it, knowing I wouldn't question her. But now I knew better. I didn't confront her, not yet. I wanted to scream at her, demand answers, but I didn't. I had to play it smart. If I wanted to make her pay for what she did, I had to wait. I had to gather everything. I needed a plan, and that's where this is going. I'm not going to just expose her affair and let her cry her way out of it. No, that's too easy. I'm going to make sure her whole world comes crashing down. Her reputation, her career, her friendships, everything she thinks is secure. I'm going to rip it all away. Ryan's not off the hook either. He's just as guilty, and he's going to pay. For now, I'll keep pretending. I'll be the perfect husband, the guy who doesn't know what's really going on. I'll smile and nod while she lies to my face, and she won't suspect a thing. But soon, they'll both regret ever thinking they could get away with this. The next few days were tough. Every time I looked at Lauren, all I could think about was Ryan and what they were doing behind my back. I couldn't believe how clueless I'd been. It was like I'd been living in this bubble, convinced that nothing could touch our marriage, that we were stronger than that. But now, every little thing she did pissed me off. The way she'd smile at her phone, her fake little laughs when she talked to her friends, the way she avoided making eye contact with me. It all made sense now. I knew I couldn't just let this slide. But I also knew that confronting her right away wouldn't get me anywhere. She'd deny it, spin some story, maybe even cry a little and say she was sorry. No, if I was going to make her pay, I needed proof. I needed something she couldn't talk her way out of. I started paying more attention to her routine. She always left her tablet behind when she went out, claiming she didn't need it. That's where I got most of the messages, so I kept checking. I'd wait until she was gone. Then I'd scroll through her texts with Ryan. The more I read, the angrier I got. They weren't just having sex. They were laughing at me, making plans right under my nose. I could feel the rage boiling inside me, but I kept it down. I couldn't afford to blow up. Not yet. Then one day, I got my break. She told me she was going out with Anna to plan some charity event, but I knew better. I checked her tablet, and there it was, a message from Ryan confirming their meetup. This wasn't just some casual fling. They had been seeing each other regularly for months. That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I followed her. She didn't notice me. Why would she? I was supposed to be working late, just like Ryan's wife thought he was. I trailed her all the way to a hotel downtown, some place that was too expensive for a casual meetup. I watched as she parked the car and walked in, heels clicking on the pavement like she had no care in the world. It took everything in me not to storm in there and tear the place apart. But I held back. I waited. I needed more. I needed undeniable proof. An hour later, she came out, looking a little too flushed and a little too happy. She didn't see me parked across the street, didn't see me watching as she got in her car and drove home like nothing had happened. She probably thought she was so clever, sneaking around like this, thinking I wouldn't catch on. But I had her now. And with every new piece of evidence, my plan was getting clearer. I wasn't going to just let this go. No, I was going to take everything from her. That night, when she got home, I was waiting for her. "How was your night?" I asked, trying to keep the bitterness out of my voice. "Good," she said, barely looking at me as she walked to the kitchen. And I got a lot done." "You?" I smiled, feeling the anger simmer just below the surface. "Same as always. Work, work, work." She didn't even notice the tension in my voice. She just poured herself a glass of wine and acted like everything was fine. And I let her. For now. But I knew exactly what I had to do next. I kept everything bottled up for a few more weeks. Each day, it got harder to look at her, harder to pretend I didn't know what she was doing. But I had to stick to the plan. I wasn't going to explode on her until I had everything ready. So, I kept playing my role, the doting husband who believed every lie she told. But I could only take so much. One night, she came home late again, claiming she had dinner with Anna. I don't know what it was about that night. Maybe it was the smug look on her face, or maybe I just had enough, but I couldn't hold it in anymore. She walked into the kitchen, setting down her purse like she didn't have a care in the world. "How was your night?" I asked, same question as always, but this time, I wasn't trying to hide the sarcasm in my voice. "Fine," she said, her back to me as she pulled a bottle of wine from the fridge. "Anna and I had a great time." She popped the cork and poured herself a glass, completely oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I couldn't do it anymore. "You know," I said, leaning against the counter, "I'm surprised you've been spending so much time with Anna, considering how busy Ryan must be with work and all." She froze for a second, just a split second, but it was enough. She recovered quickly, though, turning around with that fake smile plastered on her face. "Oh, you know how it is? Ryan works late, just like you." That was it. I couldn't listen to her lie to me again. I straightened up, my eyes locked on hers. "Cut the crap, Lauren." "I know." Her face went pale, and the smile vanished. "What are you talking about?" "You and Ryan. I know everything." My voice was cold, steady. I wasn't yelling, but the rage was there, just under the surface, waiting. She stared at me, blinking like she couldn't process what I was saying. Then, she tried to laugh it off. "Ethan, that's crazy. Ryan and there's nothing going on. He's just a friend." "A friend?" I let out a bitter laugh. "That's funny, because I've seen the messages, Lauren. I've seen the way you talk to him, and I followed you to the hotel. So, stop lying to me." She stood there, stunned, like a deer caught in headlights. For a second, I thought maybe she'd come clean, maybe she'd finally tell me the truth. But no, she doubled down. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice shaking. "Ryan and we didn't mean for it to happen. It just did. But it's over, Ethan. It's been over for weeks." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She had the nerve to stand there and keep lying, even after I caught her. I felt my fists clenching, my whole body shaking with anger. But I kept my voice low. "You think I'm stupid? You think I haven't been paying attention? I know it's not over. I know you've been seeing him this whole time." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she stepped toward me, reaching out like she was going to fix everything with a touch. "Ethan, please. I'm sorry. I didn't want this to happen. I love you. I never meant to hurt you." I jerked away from her, the disgust boiling over. "Don't you dare touch me. You don't get to stand there and act like you're the victim. You've been screwing around behind my back for months, lying to my face every day, and now you expect me to believe you're sorry." She broke down then, full-on sobbing, covering her face with her hands. But I didn't feel sorry for her. Not one bit. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Watching her crumble, seeing the guilt on her face, it felt good. But it wasn't enough. This was just the beginning. I stood there, watching her fall apart, but it didn't make me feel better. Not the way I thought it would. I had imagined this moment so many times. How I'd feel when she finally realized she couldn't lie her way out of this. I thought I'd feel vindicated, powerful, but all I felt was empty. Everything we'd built, everything I thought we had was gone. And no amount of crying from her was going to change that. Lauren's sobbing filled the room, but I couldn't look at her. Instead, I stared out the window, my mind racing. I had loved this woman. I had built a life with her, sacrificed for her, believed in her. And she had betrayed me. The anger was still there, simmering just beneath the surface, but now, mixed with it, was something else. Grief. This wasn't just about the affair. It was about the years we'd spent together, the trust one thought we had. I had trusted her with everything, and now, it felt like I didn't even know who she was. The woman I married was gone, replaced by this liar, this cheater who could cry all she wanted, but I couldn't forgive her. Not this. She finally looked up at me, her face streaked with tears, her eyes red and desperate. "Ethan, please, I'm begging you," she choked out, her voice cracking. "We can fix this. We can go to counseling, work through it. I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you." Love. She kept saying that word like it still meant something. But if she loved me, how could she have done this? How could she have looked me in the eye every day, told me she loved me, and then gone to bed with someone else? "Don't," I said, my voice cold harsh. "Don't you dare say you love me. You don't do this to someone you love." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, shaking her head. "Ethan, I do. I do love you. I was confused, okay? I got caught up in something stupid, but it's over. It's been over." The lies, the excuses, they kept pouring out of her mouth like a flood, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I wanted to scream, to make her understand how much she'd hurt me, how broken I felt inside. But I couldn't give her that satisfaction. I couldn't let her see how deeply she'd cut me. Instead, I kept my voice low, controlled. "I don't care, Lauren. I don't care if it's over. It doesn't change what you did. You destroyed us." She sobbed harder, crumpling onto the floor like she couldn't hold herself up anymore. "I'm sorry," she wailed. "I'm so sorry. Please just tell me what to do. I'll do anything." I looked down at her, but all I felt was disgust. How could she ask me that? How could she stand there and expect me to fix everything, to forgive her? There was no coming back from this. Not for me. Maybe some guys could forgive something like this, move on, rebuild. But not me. I wasn't that guy. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of it all settle on my chest. The anger, the hurt, the betrayal. It was too much. I couldn't live like this anymore. "I don't want to be married to you anymore," I said, my voice steady, final. Her eyes widened in shock, her breath catching in her throat. "Ethan, no. Please, we can." "I'm done," I interrupted, not letting her finish. "I'm done with the lies with you. There's nothing left to save." She broke down again, sobbing uncontrollably, but I turned and walked away. I needed to get out of there before I said something I couldn't take back. I grabbed my keys and left the house, slamming the door behind me, leaving her cries echoing through the empty halls. As I drove away, my heart pounded in my chest. I had just ended my marriage, the life I thought I was going to live forever. But instead of feeling free, all I felt was hollow. I didn't go far that night. I ended up sitting in my car at a nearby park, just staring at the empty playground. My mind was racing, my emotions all over the place. Part of me wanted to go back to try and fix things, but another part of me knew that I couldn't. There was no fixing this. The betrayal was too deep. How was I supposed to go on, knowing that the person I'd built my life with had been lying to me for months? Every time I looked at her, all I'd see was her with him. Ryan. The name alone made my blood boil. I hated him just as much as I hated her. He had a wife, a family, and yet he'd gone after mine. He didn't care what he was destroying. And Lauren? She didn't care either. She was willing to risk everything, our marriage, our life together, for some cheap thrill. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I'd spent so many years trying to build something real with her, and she threw it all away without a second thought. That's when it hit me. I wasn't just going to walk away. No, she didn't get to ruin my life and walk away without consequences. She didn't get to cheat, lie, and then cry her way into making me feel sorry for her. If she thought that was how this was going to go, she was wrong. I sat there in my car thinking about everything, our life together, her affair, Ryan, and I made my decision. I wasn't just going to divorce her. I was going to destroy her. Her career was the first thing that came to mind. Lauren worked in PR. She had spent years building her reputation as the go-to person for crisis management. Funny how she was great at cleaning up other people's messes, but couldn't manage to keep her own life together. I knew exactly how to hit her where it hurt. Over the years, I kept mental notes of the little things, secrets she'd told me in passing, mistakes her clients had made that she'd covered up. I knew enough to ruin her, to make sure that nobody would want to hire her again. One email, one anonymous tip, and I could take her whole career down. All those late nights she'd spent working on high-profile clients, all those connections she'd made, gone. She'd be scrambling to pick up the pieces of her professional life, just like she'd made me scramble to pick up the pieces of my personal one. But that wasn't enough. I wanted to make sure her family knew too. Her parents adored me. They thought I was the perfect son-in-law. They had no idea their precious daughter was out there sleeping with another man. I was going to make sure they knew exactly who she was. Let them see the real Lauren. That image of their perfect, successful daughter, I'd shatter it. And Ryan? He wasn't going to escape either. He was married to Anna, and she deserved to know. I wasn't going to keep quiet about what he did. No way. He thought he could cheat on his wife, ruin my marriage, and get away with it. I'd make sure Anna knew everything, and I'd be there when it all came crashing down on him. Ryan wasn't just going to lose his affair. He was going to lose his wife, his family, his reputation. I was going to make sure of it. As I sat there in the darkness, the plan came together. I could feel the anger and hurt turning into something colder, determination. I wasn't going to be the victim. No, I was going to take control of the situation, and by the time I was done, Lauren and Ryan would regret ever thinking they could play me for a fool. I turned the key in the ignition and drove home, the path forward clearer than ever. This wasn't going to end in tears and apologies. It was going to end with them losing everything, just like I had. When I got home that night, Lauren was already in bed. She'd cried herself to sleep, her face still blotchy from the tears. I stood there for a moment, staring at her. She looked peaceful, almost like nothing had happened. It amazed me how quickly she could fall back into her old routine, like she hadn't just shattered my world a few hours earlier. I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt nothing. The love I'd had for her, the affection, the trust, it was all gone. All that was left was the plan. I grabbed a blanket from the closet and went downstairs to sleep on the couch. There was no way I could stay in the same bed as her. But as I lay there in the dark, my mind didn't stop. I was thinking about everything I needed to do next, how I was going to take her down piece by piece. First thing the next morning, I started setting things in motion. I wasn't going to drag this out. I was going to hit her fast and hard. I wanted her to feel the same sense of helplessness that I'd felt when I found out about her affair. I wanted her to watch as her life fell apart, just like she'd made mine crumble. I knew the first step was finding out more about Ryan. I needed to know everything I could about him, his work, his reputation, his marriage to Anna. The more I knew, the better I could take him down. So I started digging. It didn't take long to find his company's website, and from there, I found all his professional profiles, articles where he'd been mentioned, business awards he'd won. I made notes of everything. Then I turned to his personal life. I had to find a way to contact Anna. I didn't want to be impulsive and just drop a bomb on her without being ready. No, I had to make sure I had all the evidence in place before I made my move. I wasn't going to give Ryan or Lauren a single chance to weasel their way out of this. While I was setting up my plans, Lauren was walking around the house like a ghost. She barely said a word to me, which was fine. Every time I looked at her, I felt the anger bubbling up again. But I kept it under control. I needed to keep up appearances for a little while longer. She finally broke the silence one night as we sat across from each other at the dinner table. I hadn't said more than a few words to her in days, and I could tell it was eating her up inside. She kept glancing at me, waiting for me to say something, but I didn't. I just kept eating like she wasn't even there. I know you're angry, she said quietly, her voice trembling. But we can still fix this, Ethan. I know we can. I didn't look up. There's nothing to fix. She reached across the table, her hand hovering over mine, but I pulled it away before she could touch me. I wasn't playing her game. Not anymore. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice cracking. I'll do anything to make this right. I let her words hang in the air for a moment before I looked at her, really looked at her. You think you can fix this with an apology? I asked, my voice cold and steady. Do you have any idea what you've done? She started crying again, the tears falling silently down her cheeks. But it didn't move me. Not anymore. I just sat there, watching her fall apart, knowing that this was only the beginning of what I had in store for her. I stood up, grabbed my plate, and walked away, leaving her at the table, broken. She didn't follow me. She just sat there, crying into her hands. Good. After our last conversation, Lauren seemed to realize I wasn't going to let this go so easily. She tried harder, making me breakfast, sending texts throughout the day, asking if we could talk. But I knew better. Every move she made, every little gesture, was just her way of trying to control the damage. She didn't love me. She loved the idea of keeping her perfect life intact. It only made me more determined to destroy it. I spent the next week gathering everything I needed to take her and Ryan down. First, I hired a private investigator. I wanted more than just texts and messages. I needed solid, undeniable proof of the affair. I wanted photos, locations, dates, times. I wasn't going to leave any room for Lauren to weasel her way out of this. The PI worked fast. Within a few days, I had a folder full of photos of Lauren and Ryan together. They weren't even trying to hide it. They were all over each other at restaurants, sneaking into hotels, even meeting up at parks, pretending to be just two friends taking a walk. But the photos showed everything: the body language, the lingering touches, the way they looked at each other. It was disgusting. Ryan wasn't just some random guy in her life. He was someone she wanted, someone she desired, and that hurt more than I wanted to admit. I wasn't just losing my wife to some meaningless fling. I had lost her long before I even realized it. Once I had the photos, I started digging into Ryan's life more. I found out that his company was going through some financial trouble, something he'd been trying to keep quiet. I made a few calls, found out about some shady deals he'd been a part of, the kind that wouldn't look good if they came to light. It was all starting to fall into place. But it wasn't just about Lauren and Ryan. I wanted to make sure Anna knew exactly what her husband had been up to. I wanted her to feel the same pain I was feeling. So, I reached out to her, sent her an anonymous message with a few of the photos attached. I wasn't going to meet with her in person, not yet. I wanted her to see it for herself first. Let her process the betrayal. Then, when she was ready, I'd make my move. Lauren, on the other hand, had no idea any of this was going on. She was still trying to act like things could go back to normal, that we could just sweep everything under the rug and pretend none of it had happened. I let her think that. I played my role, giving her just enough hope to make her believe she still had a chance. Then, one evening, she suggested we invite Ryan and Anna over for dinner. The audacity of it nearly knocked me off my feet. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to suggest it, like she hadn't been sneaking around with Ryan behind both our backs for months. But I didn't let it show. Instead, I smiled and said, "That sounds like a great idea." She blinked, clearly surprised that I was willing to go along with it. "Really?" she asked, her voice full of hope. "Yeah," I said, keeping my voice calm. "It's been a while since we had them over. Let's make a night of it." If she had any doubts, she didn't show them. She jumped at the idea, thinking it was her chance to smooth things over, to bring us all together like everything was fine. But what she didn't know was that I had already sent the evidence to Anna. She was about to walk into the perfect storm. The day of the dinner came faster than I expected, and I spent the entire afternoon preparing. Not the food, Lauren handled that, but the trap I was about to spring. I knew exactly how this night was going to go down, and there was no way Lauren or Ryan could wriggle their way out of it. Lauren was in the kitchen, humming to herself, acting like everything was fine. It made me sick. How could she stand there, cooking dinner for the man she was cheating on me with, and act like she wasn't doing anything wrong? I played along, offering to help here and there, but my mind was focused on what was coming. I knew Anna would show up. She hadn't responded to the anonymous message I sent, but I knew she'd come. She had to. I couldn't even imagine how she must have felt when she opened that message. Seeing her husband with my wife, seeing the proof of their affair. She wouldn't just sit on that. No, she was coming to dinner with a plan of her own. Around 7 p.m., Ryan and Anna arrived. Lauren was practically glowing when she greeted them at the door, playing the perfect hostess, while Ryan smirked like he owned the place. Anna was quieter, her eyes sharp and calculating as she hugged Lauren and shot a quick glance at me. She knew. I could see it in her face. I poured everyone drinks, making small talk while Lauren set the table. Ryan tried to chat me up about work, but I wasn't interested. The tension between us was palpable, but he didn't seem to notice or care. He probably thought he was getting away with everything, that I was still clueless about the affair. That's how arrogant he was. As we sat down to eat, I kept waiting for the right moment. I wasn't going to rush this. I wanted to savor the look on Lauren's face when everything came crashing down around her. Halfway through dinner, the conversation took a turn. "So," Anna said, her voice calm but with an edge I'd never heard from her before. "How have you two been?" "I mean, really?" Lauren smiled, oblivious. "Oh, just busy with work and everything. But we're doing great." "Why do you ask?" Anna's eyes locked onto Lauren's. "Because I've heard some things, seen some things, actually." Lauren's smile faltered, just for a second, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, like what?" Anna didn't blink. "Like you and my husband sneaking around behind our backs." Silence fell over the table. Lauren's face drained of color, her hand frozen halfway to her wine glass. Ryan looked like he'd been slapped, his cocky smirk wiped clean off his face. I leaned back in my chair, watching it all unfold. I didn't need to say anything. Anna was doing exactly what I had hoped she would. Lauren stammered, trying to regain control. "Anna, I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, don't you?" Anna pulled out her phone and tapped the screen a few times. She tossed it onto the table in front of Lauren, and the images I had sent her were right there, glaring up at all of us. Pictures of Lauren and Ryan together, holding hands, kissing, sneaking into hotels. There was no denying it. Lauren's eyes darted to me, then back to Anna. "It's not what it looks like," she said, her voice shaking. "I can explain." Ryan tried to jump in. "Anna, come on. Let's not do this here." "Shut up." Anna snapped, her voice cold. "We're doing this now." Lauren looked at me again, pleading, but I stayed silent. This was her mess. She was going to have to clean it up. There was no way out of this for her. The room was thick with tension, the sound of Lauren's labored breathing, the only thing breaking the silence. Finally, I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "You want to explain?" "Go ahead. Explain it to us." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. She was trapped, cornered by her own lies, and I could see the panic starting to set in. The perfect life she'd built, the life she thought she could have with me and with Ryan. It was all falling apart, right in front of her. Ryan stood up, his chair scraping against the floor. "Anna, let's go. We can talk about this later." But Anna didn't move. She crossed her arms, glaring at both Lauren and Ryan. "No, we're not going anywhere. You've been lying to me for months, and now you're going to stand there and face the consequences." Lauren finally found her voice, but it was weak, desperate. "I never meant for this to happen. I made a mistake." Anna's eyes flashed with fury. "A mistake? Sleeping with my husband for months is a mistake." Lauren collapsed into her chair, sobbing, but none of us moved to comfort her. She was on her own now, and she knew it. Ryan looked helpless, like he was trying to figure out an exit strategy, but there wasn't one. He was as trapped as Lauren. Anna wasn't going to let him off easy, and I was just getting started. After dinner, the tension in the room was unbearable. Anna stormed out first, leaving Ryan behind, his face flushed with embarrassment. Lauren, still sobbing, was too shocked to say anything. It was like the weight of her betrayal had finally come crashing down, and she had nowhere to run. Ryan stood up, attempting to follow Anna. "I'll talk to her. We can fix this," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. "Fix it," I said, standing up and facing him. "There's nothing left to fix. You ruined 2 marriages, Ryan." He stopped in his tracks, looking at me for the first time like he actually realized what he'd done. But I didn't care. I wasn't going to stand there and let him off the hook. Lauren finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan, please, I didn't mean for any of this. I couldn't take it anymore. Don't you dare pretend like you're sorry now, I snapped. You made your choices. Now you're going to live with the consequences. Ryan turned to me, his arrogance fading. Look, I'm sorry, man. I cut him off. Save it. Your wife knows, my wife knows, and everyone's about to know. I'm done with both of you. Lauren's sobs grew louder, but I didn't stick around to comfort her. I walked out of the room, leaving her and Ryan behind. This was just the beginning. The next day, I started putting the second part of my plan into action. I sent the evidence of the affair to Lauren's boss anonymously. I knew her reputation at work was everything to her. She'd built her career on being the perfect PR professional, someone who handled other people's messes. Now, she was going to be the mess. By the afternoon, I'd gotten word that the email had done its job. Her boss called her into his office, and when she came home that evening, her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. I got fired, she said, standing in the doorway. Good, I said coldly. She didn't even argue. She just stood there, defeated. It was exactly what I wanted, to see her broken like she'd broken me. But I wasn't done yet. Ryan was next on my list. His business was already in trouble, but I made sure it got worse. I sent the evidence of his shady deals to a few competitors, and within days, word had spread. Contracts were pulled, deals fell through, and his company started crumbling under the weight of bad press. I didn't even have to lift a finger after that. Once the rumors started, his downfall was inevitable. I heard through the grapevine that he was scrambling to keep things together, but there was no saving it. He'd lost everything, his business, his wife, and his reputation. I watched from the sidelines as it all came crashing down on him. It was the satisfaction I'd been waiting for. Lauren tried to reach out to her parents for support, but I'd already been ahead of her. I sent them the truth about the affair before she had the chance to spin it. They were devastated. Her mom called me, crying, apologizing for what their daughter had done. I knew they wouldn't disown her, but the disappointment in their voices was enough. Lauren tried to explain, tried to mend things with them, but I'd taken that from her too. Her perfect image in their eyes was shattered, and nothing she said could fix it. She was alone now, and I was fine with that. A few days later, Lauren came to me, broken and desperate. What do you want from me? She cried. I've lost everything. My job, my family, us. What more do you want? I stared at her, unmoved by her tears. I want you to understand what you did, I said. I want you to feel the same pain you put me through. And now, I want you gone. She looked at me, stunned. You want me to leave? I nodded. Pack your things. I'm filing for divorce. This is over. She didn't argue. She didn't even cry anymore. She just nodded, defeated, and walked upstairs to pack her bags. It was the end of everything we'd built together, and I didn't feel a single ounce of regret. The divorce papers were filed within the week. Lauren didn't contest anything. She knew there was no point. I made sure the settlement was in my favor, and by the end of it, she walked away with nothing. No house, no savings, no dignity. Ryan and Anna's divorce followed soon after. Anna thanked me for exposing the truth, but we didn't keep in touch. We were just two people who had been burned by the same fire, nothing more. As for me, I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into work, started seeing old friends, picked up hobbies I'd forgotten about. It wasn't easy, but day by day, I felt the weight of Lauren's betrayal lift off my shoulders. Looking back now, I can't say I'm proud of everything I did, but I don't regret it either. Lauren's affair destroyed me, and I wasn't about to let her get away with it. I wanted revenge, and I got it. But the truth is, no amount of revenge can undo the hurt. It doesn't make you feel whole again. If there's one thing I've learned through all of this, it's that trust is fragile. Once it's broken, it's nearly impossible to repair. I don't know if I'll ever trust someone again, but I do know one thing. I'll never be that naive again. I'm moving on with my life, and I'm leaving Lauren in the past where she belongs.